Selene Gallio is a centuries-old mutant psychic vampire and a major antagonist in Marvel Comics. Also known as the Black Queen, she is a longtime member of the Hellfire Club and as such has often tormented the X-Men and their allies. She also fought Captain America and the Daughters of Liberty. She's immortal, she possesses great magical powers, she can just manipulate shadows and darkness. She can drain the life force from any living being that comes into contact with her skin. She's pretty cool. After a failed attempt to sacrifice the population of ancient Rome to make herself a god, she founded Nova Roma, an isolated colony modeled after ancient Rome that survived into modern times in Brazil's Amazon rainforest. She maintains her immortality with her mutant power because she likes to absorb the essence or life force of others. She can also absorb memories and take control of people this way. So by drawing on the power she's absorbed, she can grant herself superhuman abilities, enhanced strength, speed, whatever she needs. Oh, did I mention she's a telepath with very, very good telekinetic abilities? Combine all of this, and you've also got her lovely extended lifespan. She's become one of the most skilled magic users in the world, and I think at one point she was even considered a potential candidate to replace Doctor Strange as Sorcerer Supreme. So that's how you get a great antagonist in the New Mutant series, and also the whole Necrosha story arc. Soft Serve's sole mutant ability is to defecate ice cream, controlling the flavor she creates and how much she serves, making her a mutant with pretty much zero inherent fighting capabilities. She was first introduced in a background moment in Way of X, issue number 2, and artist Bob Quinn later elaborated on her powers with a detailed sketch on Twitter. So originally he's like, yeah, she's got different plumbing from baseline humans, but later amended that her body is a portal to the ice cream dimension, and the phrase defecating is more about the unfortunate placement of the portal's exit than her actual biological process. Soft Serve, by the way, is not the only mutant with ice cream related powers. You've also got to consider Ice Cream, who can turn himself into any flavor of ice cream. Yeah, ice cream. Alright. According to Bob Quinn, there's no relation between the two, but Soft Serve is a big fan of ice cream. Just don't confuse the two, everybody, because it's easy to do. Sketch has the mutant ability to reshape reality by altering it upon her sketch pad. She can only affect non-organic matter with this power, fashioning metallic tendrils, metallic sheaths, and obviously she needs to be able to see an object in order to affect it. Thankfully for us, she carries around bags full of sketch pads and pencils at all times. In terms of what history we know about her, I think she was held prisoner in Russia by mutant traders until being saved by the X-Men. Oh, and before his abrupt departure from writing Uncanny X-Men, Chris Claremont did intend for Sketch to join the X-Men, but now I got nothing for her. Having the physical attributes of a fish, Sammy Perret, or Squid Boy, was the perfect target for bullies. Now intent on stopping the harassment, Sammy plotted to kill his tormentors, but thankfully a meeting with Professor X saved Sammy from the potentially deadly showdown, and he was like, yeah, I'll enroll at the Xavier Institute instead. Well, en route to the Institute with Professor Xavier, he was like, hey, I can't contact anybody. So they took a detour over to Ireland to help with a mission, and upon investigating, we found ourselves assisting Juggernaut. And then Juggernaut and Sammy became good friends after Sammy saved Juggernaut's life. Kane became a surrogate father to Sammy, but then when Sammy's mother found out about his relationship with Kane, she called Alpha Flight to bring Sammy back home to her. And there, Sammy was going through some harm. Really not great. But then Juggernaut was like, hey, I'm gonna come visit. And well, Juggernaut took care of the attacker and was subsequently arrested by Alpha Flight, the big superheroes in Canada. Oh, did I mention Sammy's from Vancouver? After that, Sammy's mother left the bad guy, Sammy returned to the Institute, and good time. Later on, Juggernaut infiltrated Brotherhood of Evil, working as a double agent, but Sammy stumbled upon that group meeting and he's like, oh my gosh, Juggernaut's betraying the X-Men. So he lashed out at him, causing the group's leader, Black Tom Cassidy, to sadly kill the young mutant, pulping him. Eventually, Sammy became a candidate for resurrection by the Five, and when Kane heard that Sammy's resurrection was coming on the queue, he made it a point to be there to welcome him and to apologize for how things kind of went previously. Jazz, the guy with the power to have blue skin. Not even the power to turn off the blue, just blue skin. Real name John Xander. His dream was to be a rapper, but he wasn't really good. And while in Mutant Town, he was a runner for one of the crime lords of the area, selling toad juice, a substance made from the secretions of Toad Boy. And after M-Day, he was one of the few mutants to retain his mutant powers and appearance, but then was forcibly relocated to the mutant camp, where he was killed by fellow mutant and tent mate Johnny D, thanks to a miniature voodoo doll that Johnny made from a DNA sample. So remember Spat and Grovel, the acquaintances of Gambits who appeared in a couple of issues of Uncanny around the trial times? They had the action figures that were part of the Marvel's Most Wanted. Well, if you remember them, good on you. Do you remember that third person with them? The one that we only had for a couple of panels? His name was Landscape. He was a mutant bounty hunter with the power to create holographic environments, and that's all we really know about him. Equus, also known as Danny, was a metamorph who was able to transform his body into an equine state with horse-like speed that resembled a winged centaur. So while in the state he had flight, he had horse-like speed, really great. History on Danny: his father worked as a government scientist before he had an accident in a lab, and then retired to raise horses in Texas. So Danny was born a mutant, grew up tending to horses, and then he felt that kinship. So when he was in his mutant form, he would run with the horses. He would take the horses to be shown at state fairs, one such being the Texas State Fair, and that's where he was detected by both Magneto and Professor Xavier's mutant locating hardware. So Magneto got there first and was like, "I dub you Equus, the latest soldier in my crusade." And upon the arrival of the X-Men, Magneto was like, "Hey Danny, they're the bad guys, they're here to kidnap you." So he took on his mutant form and fought alongside Magneto against them. Now when Magneto carelessly injured Danny's horses, Danny turned against him and with the aid of the X-Men, defeated him. Danny elected to stay in Texas after this, but the X-Men did leave him a little card for the Xavier Institute, so the door's not completely closed. As part of Gene Nation, a group of Morlock whom Storm encountered and relocated to Africa, Boost was a mutant who kind of functioned like a living battery cell. He could augment other mutants' powers by a process called body jumping, where he would merge with them and boost their powers. So when humanity's last stand attacked the former Gene Nationals at their new home, Storm, the X-Men, the Brotherhood all arrived to offer the mutants protection against their enemies. Humanity's last stand was eventually defeated, and Boost, along with somebody else, they were like, "Yeah, let's get out of here." They helped the Brotherhood escape in return for being, well, dropped off at an unrevealed place of their choosing. Sadly, Boost was affected by M-Day, lost his mutant powers, but was somehow repowered and then became a citizen of Krakoa, and was suggested as a potential replacement for Cortez in Sword, but other than that, don't have a lot. Mother Inferior was a member of the Morlocks, the outcasts, the community of mutants who lived in the tunnels beneath New York City, and her power, kinda handy in this situation, she had the ability to communicate with and control rats and other vermin types of creatures. Handy when you live in the tunnels underneath a rat-infested city, scary if you're me. Well, most folks had been killed in the mutant mass extinction event. A couple of folks escaped, a few with the help of X-Men and whatnot, and Mother Inferior and her family. Part of that, they came across Anna in the old Poseidon. They helped take care of Pester's offspring until one day, Spider-Man's like, "Hey, I'm here to investigate some stuff." And Spider-Man thought the Morlocks were threatening Anna's descendant, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna rescue this little thing." But then he found out that it belonged to the Morlocks, and naturally Mother Inferior fought him. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong folks, I think she's now dead because Firebrand had that whole building collapse thing. TBD. So you might think you're familiar with Thumbelina, but we're not here to talk about the Don Bluth adaptation today. This mutant first made her appearance with the now defunct team known as the Mutant Liberation Front, the MLF. And although very loyal to her teammates and part of the team since the get-go, she was often just a source of humor to them. I don't think she took part in a lot of active missions unless she was really needed, because sadly her size and slow movement was usually more of a hindrance than helpful. Like, don't get me wrong, when it came to espionage missions, she was really great. Her ability to shrink down to like a quarter of an inch allowed her to get into places and access things that most of us can't. So she was able to save the team, she was good in a crunch. She would later help out the X-Force in a battle along with a short-lived revamp of the MLF, and she teamed up to help destroy some menaces, but then after that she would just like poof off and we didn't really know where she'd go. Currently, I think her whereabouts are unknown, but we do know that she does still have her mutant powers after all the M-Day stuff, so maybe we'll see her again.
Kamala Khan is a mutant, which probably doesn't come as a shock to most die-hard Marvel comic fans, but I figured I'd start off easy. See, in the show, we don't actually know for sure if Marvel is going to take on Kamala's mutant status from the comics. That is, until we get a post-credit scene. Marvel is always putting the fun stuff in those post-credit scenes. In the final Miss Marvel post-credit scene, Kamala and Bruno are having a little chat. Bruno indicates that there is something off about Miss Marvel's genes. Something like a mutation, in his words. This is really exciting. Marvel is finally, hopefully, bringing mutants into the MCU. There are actually a lot of characters in the movies that are mutants in the comics, but we'll get to some of them later. Miss Marvel in the comics is a mutant-inhuman hybrid. She presented as an inhuman because her X gene never manifested. Professor X believes that the inhuman side is suppressing the mutant side. Mutants were humans genetically modified by the Celestials, and the Inhumans were humans genetically engineered by the Kree, because the Kree found out about the potential humans had from the Celestial intervention. Miss Marvel first manifested her powers after the Terrigen bomb. She discovered she was capable of morphogenetics. She can make her body bigger or smaller or stretchy or even just alter her aesthetic appearance. She heals really fast and glows when using her morph powers. It's unclear as of right now what Miss Marvel's mutant powers would be if she had them, but I love a little mystery and I'm excited to find out when she inevitably inevitably gets them. Madam Web, I know about the movie, I saw the movie, controversial take, I had fun. Was it amazing? No, but was it fun? I think so. Anyway, Madam Web is a mutant. She also might not be. It kind of depends on who you ask. For a very, very long time, Madam Web was described as a mutant, even on the Marvel site. It looks like she may have received the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver treatment though, having her mutant status revoked. For a long time, Madam Web's precognitive abilities came from her mutant gene. Now it seems like she is just a human psychic. Either way, she has powers. They include telepathy and astral projection. We saw that in Madam Web. She has clairvoyance and can, maybe most notably, see the future. At one point, she was gifted immortality, but then died later anyway. Kraven the Hunter, the guy who buried Spider-Man alive, soon to be portrayed by the guy who played Quicksilver, Aaron Taylor Johnson, isn't the mutant, but he did cause one to be born. Kraven had a son that was born from an affair. Kraven the Hunter was so ashamed of his sin that he made sure the son would not go near his family by sending him to the middle of Africa. The kid, Alyosha, got some visits every once in a while. He was also a mutant. He was also a Hollywood director, then later ran a hero zoo after losing his mind a bit, then later sacrificed Maddie Franklin, yes, the one from Madam Web. He finally ended up in the Savage Land. He's had a wild ride. His mutant abilities came from his mother, but many of his special traits resemble what we've seen from his dad, like super stamina, speed, agility, strength, reflexes, heightened reflexes and senses. His mutanthood has also given him a healing factor, like most Marvel heroes. This Kraven might also be able to communicate with animals. Very cool. Abigail Brand has a lot going on. She is half human mutant and half alien. So she has a lot going for her, like hot hands. She can generate heat with her hands. If she touches you, you will burst into flames, so just stay back. Her flame color is blue, and blue flames are scientifically proven to be hotter than red or orange ones. So while it's not proven the exact temp that she can go up to, I would imagine it's pretty darn hot. That fire stuff is her mutant side. The alien genetics are thought to have supplied her with regeneration. She joined SWORD as a field agent, specifically hired to defend the world against alien threats, so she has a lot of combat and weapons training. She is depicted with green hair, which she probably got from her alien dad, as he was covered in green fur. Abigail wasn't born on Earth, but instead her father's planet Axis. That's also where she grew up, but eventually she ended up on her mom's planet Earth. Her codename is Brand. Her last name that I gave her at the beginning was Brand, but that's technically not true. I think she just took on the brand when she started to live on Earth. Her real last name is, pray for me here because I don't think I'm gonna make it out of saying this correctly, it is Thanria Geoaxis. I know that was wrong, I'm sorry. Anyway, Brand came from her mutant ability, the hot hands thing. Like a lot of mutants, she has worked alongside the X-Men before a few times. Namor has pretty recently made his big screen debut in Black Panther 2, and it was great. If you are one who is more into the cinematic side of Marvel than the comics, you might be surprised to learn that Namor is actually a mutant, technically. His dad was a human and his mom was an Atlantean princess. Love story of a lifetime. Namor has been stated to be an alpha level mutant and is occasionally called Marvel's first mutant. His special skills include the regular stuff like super strong, super agile, super speed, and more. What is relatively unique to him is his body. It's designed for underwater conditions. He does spend a lot of time down there. He can come up on land, but the water is a better place for him. In the water, his healing factor is at its peak, and he can telepathically communicate with aquatic life like sharks. Namor ages slower, that's from the Atlantean side. Flight is also on his power resume. He has wings on his ankles, though it's hard for those little guys to lift a grown, buff man, so it's thought that he maybe uses something else to make himself fly, and the wings help out acting as like a steering wheel. He can also control aspects of the weather with his trident. The guy also grew up a prince, so he's got all that prince training and behavior on his side too. Dinosaurs can also be mutants. I know, I'm as surprised as you are. Devil is a dinosaur from Earth 78,411, the dinosaur world. Jurassic Park lovers, have I got the vacation for you. When Devil Dinosaur was just a little guy, he was attacked with fire. That fire activated his mutation that made him more powerful than any other dinosaurs and made his skin red rather than green. It also made him considerably smarter than your average dino, with Devil having human-level intelligence. Technically, Devil is part of the devil beast species, and that is a specific type of dinosaur. Though he resides on Earth 78,411, he he has visited Earth 616 a few times with Moon Boy. Moon Boy saved Devil Dinosaur from the fire attack, and the dino has been fiercely loyal ever since. Moon Boy is also a mutant that is smarter than the rest of his species. There is also Moon Girl that has teamed up with Devil, but Moon Boy came first. Thanos is technically a mutant. He was born eternal yet has deviant genes. These mutants and Eternals and deviants were created by the same thing, Celestials. The Celestials were really having fun messing with humans. But in this particular case, Thanos' mutation is not like the X-Men's. Thanos possessing the deviant genes is his mutation, so it's not an X gene. Movie and comic fans alike know that Thanos is a pretty dangerous guy. Not only is he incredibly strong, but after being banned from the realm of death by Death herself, Thanos is technically totally immortal. You can't kill him, but he will come back. Even without the jewel-studded glove, Thanos is a tough opponent. He is capable of matter manipulation, like turning someone to stone, for example. He also has telepathic mind control abilities. He's a magician and can fly, or if he's too tired to fly, he can teleport. Thanos does have a brother, Harry Styles, Eros, who looks like an Eternal because he wasn't born with the mutation. Black Panther is a mutant on Earth 1610, and only there. The Black Panther we are used to seeing on Earth 616 and in the MCU is not a mutant. He is a human enhanced by that herb, the heart-shaped one, but on Earth 1610 for Ultimate Origins, the concept of T'Challa being a mutant is explored. They also explore him being the younger sibling and problem child. T'Challa in this universe is the younger brother to M'Baku. Instead of letting him do the trial and everything like that, T'Challa wanted to prove himself and did it himself. The trial here is hunting and then defeating a Black Panther. T'Challa lost the match and his throat and was hurt so bad, Wakanda had to call in assistance from the US Weapon X program. The Weapon X program used the same steps to save T'Challa that they did to make Wolverine. So now T'Challa has the claws and the new name, the Black Panther. He couldn't speak as they weren't able to repair his voice. The entire process artificially turned him into a mutant. He's got the standard healing factor, speed, strength, but also night vision. Captain America is also a mutant in another world, Earth 1298, the Mutant X-Verse. This was from when Havoc swapped his brain with another Havoc's brain. Technically, this guy wasn't Steve Rogers Captain America, he was a mutant that took up the Captain America mantle. The guy, either way, he had a rough life. I don't think we ever know his real name. He had the mutant gene, but it hadn't come out yet, so the government decided to start experimenting on him as one does. In the end, once his gene was awakened, he couldn't control his power, and the government then tried to cover him up, saying he was taken out. He wasn't, and he joined a group called Six, not the musical, but I would pay to see that. S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't very nice to the mutants here, so Six works to protect mutant kind. At a certain point, the guy started losing his mind. I wonder what kind of mental trauma could have caused that, and he took out a lot of people, including the Avengers, until he was taken out by Havoc. This mutant Cap had everything the original had, plus force fields, energy-based powers, and telepathy. Santa Claus. I have been waiting for the opportunity to talk about Santa Claus. The fact that Santa Claus is a mutant is genius and also so silly. Is it my favorite thing Marvel has done? Maybe. Santa Claus isn't just a mutant, he is the mutant. He is possibly the most powerful mutant out there. Santa is the living embodiment of giving. I can't think of a better person to gain the ability to bend space and time. Also, he can deliver Christmas presents. The X-Men's mutant detecting computer made a startling discovery one December 24th. It had registered what it described as the most powerful mutant ever registered. Good old Saint Nick. With the amount of power Santa Claus has, he's probably holding back every time we see him. Do we even know what his true form is? No. Apparently, he appears to people as the same race they are. He can transform his own body to do his bidding, which is usually just fitting through any chimney. And he can do it to you too. He turned the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants into little toys once. Even though Santa is like top of the food chain, he has never officially joined the X-Men. But that's because here in the real world, that would be too silly, too goofy, and I think we need to get over that. I want to see Santa as an X-Men by the end of 2024. If I am wrong, please let me know. I hope he's an X-Men already. I hope that I'm wrong.
At number 10, we have Tyrone Cloak Johnson and Tandy Dagger Bowen. These street-level vigilantes were supposed to be mutates. Their powers triggered by a sketchy drug experiment, right? Wrong. Early comics called them latent mutants. Their X genes activated by trauma. Cloak's a living shadow portal to the Dark Force dimension, while Dagger weaponizes light to heal or evaporate baddies. But here's the kicker. Marvel later retconned them to Mutations to distance them from the X-Men. Coincidence or conspiracy? RC. Either way, their powers scream mutant, and so do their tragic intertwined origins. Their light or dark dynamic inspired the MCU's Doctor Strange vs. Dormammu fight. Cloak and Dagger debuted in 1982, tackling real-world issues like addiction and homelessness. Their connection to the Dark Force ties them to agents of CIELD and Luke Cage. In the 2018 TV series, their bond is portrayed as cosmic destiny, hinting at latent mutant potential. Number 9 is a trailblazer, Jean-Paul Northstar Beaubier, the first openly gay superhero and a mutant so fast he left the X-Men's drama in the dust. With supersonic flight and bioluminescent energy blasts, he's basically Quicksilver fused with a glow stick, but his real power, defying stereotypes. While the X-Men fought bigots, Northstar fought for LGBTQ+ rep, marrying his husband Kyle in a landmark 2012 comic. Oh, and he's Canadian, because of course the nicest mutant is from the land of maple syrup. Northstar's name? A nod to the North Star guiding escaped slaves, symbolizing hope. As a founding member of Canada's Alpha Flight, Northstar clashed with Wolverine but later joined the X-Men. His rivalry with twin sister Aurora adds soap opera level drama to his heroics. Henry VIII's Laura Kinney, aka X-23, Wolverine's clone, but way more lethal. Born in a lab, she's got Logan's adamantium claws, healing factor, and rage, but none of his body hair. Her mutation? Hyper-accelerated evolution, making her immune to viruses and poisons. But here's the twist. She's technically a mutant clone hybrid, engineered to be the perfect weapon, yet Marvel's like, nah, she counts. Why? Because her trauma-fueled heroism outshines her DNA drama. Sorry, Logan. She's your legacy. What was her MCU debut? Rumor says Deadpool 3 will unleash her claws versus Wolverine. Laura led the all-female X-Men team and mentored younger mutants in X-23, Target X, proving clones can outshine originals. At number 7, we have Raven Darkholme, aka Mystique, the ultimate spy, saboteur, and Audius mom? Yep, she's Nightcrawler's mother and Rogue's adoptive mom. Her mutation lets her mimic anyone down to their voice and memories. But here's the kicker. She's older than democracy. Born in the 1800s, she's manipulated wars, governments, and the X-Men for centuries. And that blue skin, it's her natural form. Everything else is a lie. The ultimate flex? She's loyal to no one, not even Magneto. Her name, Mystique? Stolen from a French spy she killed in Wowo. Savage. Mystique's relationship with Precog Mutant Destiny is one of Marvel's oldest LGBTQ+ arcs, influencing her morally gray choices. At number 6 is Victor Creed, aka Sabretooth, Wolverine's arch nemesis and secret half-brother, a mutant with feral senses, razor claws, and a healing factor that outclasses Logan's. But here's the twist. His mutation's corrupted by the Weapon X program, turning him into a cannibalistic psychopath. Yet in rare moments, he's heroic. He once led the X-Men and even sacrificed himself to save mutants. Is he a monster or a martyr? Answer, yes. His skeleton's laced with carbonadium, a weaker adamantium that slows his healing. Ouch. Sabretooth's involvement in Logan's adamantium bonding adds layers to their feud, making their battles deeply personal. At number 5, we've got Shiro Yoshida, aka Sunfire, a mutant so proud he turned down the X-Men twice. Born into Japanese royalty, his powers ignited in the aftermath of Hiroshima. Yikes. Allowing him to absorb sunlight and unleash plasma firestorms. But here's the real story. He's basically a walking guilt complex, using his flames to atone for his family's What Do You Two sins. And that ego? Unmatched. He once quit the X-Men because Cyclops breathed too loudly. Now that's some next level diva energy. Sunfire's armor, designed to contain his power. Without it, he'd vaporize cities. Sunfire's role in X-Men. Red showcases his diplomatic side, balancing his fiery temper with a sense of honor. Coming in at number 4, we've got Samuel Guthrie, aka Cannonball, the Kentucky coal miner turned one of Marvel's most OP flyers. His mutation, a bioenergy force field that lets him rocket through solid steel without a scratch. Think Colossus meets Iron Man's repulsors. But here's the real kicker. He's invulnerable mid flight. Even the Hulk couldn't crack his shield. And don't let the aw shucks charm fool you. He's led the New Mutants, X-Men, and even the Avengers. Take notes, Cyclops. This Southern boy is the real MVP. Oh, and his sister. Husk? She sheds her skin to gain new powers. Family reunions must be wild. Cannonball's run with the Avengers in Avengers World proved mutants don't need Xavier's shadow to thrive. At number 3, we've got Jamie Medrox, aka Multiple Man, the mutant who clones himself and his mistakes. Every duplicate shares his memories, skills, and neuroses. Party trick, he can send a dupe to work while he naps. The downside, clones gain free will and once overthrew him. But here's the real twist, he's a genius detective using his dupes to crack cases. And his love life? Let's just say it gets complicated. He straight up married a clone of Siren. Yeah, that happened. His powers work through kinetic energy. Slap him and poof. New dupe, Jamie's Detective Agency and X Factor. 2005 blends noir with humor, making it a cult favorite. Proof that even mutants could use a little therapy. At number 2, we've got Allison Blair, aka Dazzler, the disco diva who turns sound into a weapon. Her mutation converts audio waves into laser light shows, capable of blinding enemies or slicing through tanks. But here's the real drama. Marvel originally tried to sell her as a real singer, hiding her mutant status. Plot twist, fans hated it, so they retconned her into the X-Men. Now, she's a queer icon, a reality warper, and even an occasional Herald of Galactus. Take that, Beyonce. Oh, and her 1980s comic, it came with a real vinyl record, peak retro. As a Herald, she once wielded the power cosmic, because why stop at disco when you can bend reality itself? And number 1, Clarice Ferguson, aka Blink, the teleporter who broke the multiverse before it was cool. Her pink portals can move armies across galaxies, or eras. But here's the twist, she's a nexus of doomed timelines. In the Age of Apocalypse, she led the resistance against a world where Xavier died. In Exiles, she hopscotched realities, fixing Marvel's screw-ups. Yet her greatest power, charisma. Fans loved her so much that they resurrected her twice, bowed down to the Queen of Quantum Chaos. Her Exiles team inspired MCU's Loki TVA agents. Blink's design in X-Men, Days of Future Past film merged her comic and AOA looks, cementing her iconic status.
Number 10, Devil Dinosaur. Let's start from far left field. Devil Dinosaur is, well, a dinosaur, hailing from the alternate reality of Earth 78411, aka Dinosaur World, a universe that exists in the primordial past. Now, in his youth, Devil Dinosaur faced a close call with the end of his life, nearly consumed by a tribe of ruthless beings known as the Killer Folk, who inhabited this world. However, he was saved by Moon Boy, a young member of a rival tribe to the Killer Folk known as the Small Folk. Now, when Devil Dinosaur was exposed to the relentless flames of the Killer Folk's fiery assault, the fiery baptism triggered a mutation within the dinosaur, granting him extraordinary powers beyond those of his kind. Specifically, it gave him the intelligence of an average human. Now, simultaneously, it also altered his once olive green skin to a striking and vibrant shade of flame red. Other than his intelligence and his red skin, Devil Dinosaur also exhibited unwavering loyalty to his companion, Moon Boy, who he shared a ton of adventures with, even eventually coming over to the main 616 Marvel Universe. Number 9, Madame Web. I actually completely forgot that this was the case, but Cassandra Webb, who would eventually become Madame Web, was born a mutant with tremendous telepathic and precognitive powers. Those are some solid powers to have, but she was also born paralyzed and blind, which does complicate things quite a bit. Over time, things got even worse for her physically as she developed myasthenia gravis, a chronic autoimmune disorder in which antibodies destroy the communication between nerves and muscles, resulting in weakness of the skeletal muscles. So, in order to try and help her, her husband built her a life support system that she had to remain attached to. And could you imagine someone loving you so much that they build a life support system for you? I can't. She eventually became involved with Spider-Man, using her powers to fill him in on crimes that she could not physically deal with herself. She also revealed that she knew his secret identity due to her telepathy, making her one of the first people to ever learn Spider-Man's identity. Number 8, Abigail Brand. Abigail Brand burst onto the scene in the astonishing X-Men, where she assumed the leadership of SWORD, or the Sentient World Observation and Response Department, a specialized branch of S.H.I.E.L.D. dedicated to safeguarding Earth from extraterrestrial threats. Now, at first, her relationship with the X-Men was far from amicable, and she had no intentions of collaborating with them. However, her perspective underwent a significant transformation as she grew closer to the X-Men, and particularly sparking a romantic romantic connection between the two. From the get-go, we knew that Abigail Brand was a unique blend of human and alien heritage, but it wasn't until several years into her character's evolution, during the Avengers vs. X-Men epilogue miniseries AVX Consequences, that we all learned of her latent mutant powers. She inherited pyrokinetic abilities from her mutant mother, shedding light on her own dormant mutant potential. But despite her newfound capabilities, Abigail often refrains from wielding her mutant powers when possible, instead relying on her remarkable prowess as an agent. It's also a little hard to call her a hero, but here we are. Number 7. Whizzer. Some of you may be extremely familiar with Whizzer. He's the speedster superhero from Marvel Comics that somehow gained his abilities due to a transfusion from an actual mongoose. It's absolutely whack, and he became incredibly famous for that origin. Not good famous though, like he became a joke, which is probably a big reason that Roy Thomas later explained away that origin, mostly. Thomas's new take on the Whizzer's origin is that the Whizzer was already a mutant with super speed, but it was just that the mongoose blood transfusion, or maybe just the complete and utter shock of getting a transfusion from a mongoose, kick-started the Whizzer's mutant powers, activating his mutant gene. And that does actually kind of make sense, sort of, I guess, only because the Whizzer's son was also a mutant. I'm not saying the mongoose part of this equation makes any sense though, don't worry. It doesn't. Number 6. Cloak and Dagger. Tyrone Johnson and Tandy Bowen were living on the streets when they were captured and experimented on by one Dr. Simon Marshall. Now, using his new experimental substances, Dr. Marshall had injected Tyrone, Tandy, and a ton of other captured individuals. The rest of the test group did not survive their interaction with the substance, but Tyrone and Tandy's latent mutant genes were activated to create Cloak and Dagger. There was one other who survived, who went by the stolen name of Martin Lee and became the villain Mr. Negative, but that's a story for a different time. For our two mutants, Tyrone, aka Cloak, developed a connection to the Dark Force dimension that existed within his cloak and allowed him to teleport, which was tempered by Tandy, aka Dagger's, light-based abilities that she could use as projectiles, which also gave her limited psionic and healing abilities. They are one of the more iconic duos in Marvel Comics, but not a lot of people realize that they are indeed mutants. Number 5. Namor. In 1920, Captain Leonard Mackenzie led a naval expedition to the Antarctic Circle that went pretty sideways and drew the attention of the underwater people known as the Atlanteans. This led to a meeting between Mackenzie and Atlantis' princess, Fen. The two fell in love and had a surface marriage. However, Leonard passed on in an attack from Fen's father, who did not know what had happened to his daughter. In the aftermath, a heartbroken Fen returned to Atlantis pregnant with baby Namor. This made Namor an Atlantean-human hybrid, but he is much more than that, as he's also a mutant. This means Namor has a very unique physical makeup. He exhibits the long life and increased strength, stamina, and durability of an Atlantean, though all of those attributes are enhanced due to his human side as well. He possesses aquatic healing, radiation absorption, aquatic telepathy, electrolocation, atmokinesis, and hydrokinesis, but on top of everything else, he can also fly, with the aid of fins on his ankles that look very much like bird wings. And fun fact, he was actually one of the first heroes ever able to fly on his own in comic books. Number 4. Justice. This is probably one of the more unique mutant gene activations. So, picture this. Vance Astrovic, just your average teenager who was secretly being looked out for by the Guardians of the Galaxy of the future, who thought he was in danger because of this bad guy named Korvac. Now, when Vance met his future self, who was a Guardian by the name of Major Victory, who didn't get his mutant gene activated, it kind of freaked Vance out, understandably, and that shock made his mutant power of psychokinesis burst into action. But it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for Vance. His dad was pretty terrible to him during his younger years, and when he got these powers, it only made things worse. His father was really against mutants and took it out on his own son. So, Vance did what any sane person would do, and he ran away. He had some interesting adventures along the way, like hanging out with the Thing from the Fantastic Four. Now back then, he called himself Marvel Boy and even did some wrestling. Vance really wanted to be an Avenger though, but Captain America told him he needed more practice. Luckily, Night Thrasher and Nova were starting their own superhero team called the New Warriors, and Vance was all in. He quickly became one of their key members, meeting this awesome mutant named Firestar, and they kinda hit it off. Number 3. Vanguard. Nikolai Krylenko had a pretty intense childhood, to put it mildly. His dad, a Russian nuclear physicist, and the government realized that Nikolai and his twin sister had latent mutant abilities. abilities. Now for Nikolai, he possesses a mutant energy field that repels virtually all electromagnetic, kinetic, and gravitonic energy, which allows him to create force fields, fly, and redirect any energy repelled by his natural force field back at its source. So from a young age, they were molded into soldiers. They ended up joining the Soviet super soldiers backed by the KGB. Now Nikolai took on the name Vanguard while his sister became Darkstar. They didn't have the friendliest encounters with American heroes, even squaring off where they started off as propaganda villains. But things took a crazy turn when their father got turned into something called the Presence. The government sent Vanguard and Darkstar to take him down, not realizing they were targeting their own dad. Luckily though, they figured that out, and when they did, they were like, nope, not cool, and turned against the Soviet regime. So Vanguard, Darkstar, and another named Ursa Major became their own agents fighting for the good of the people, or trying their best to do so. Number 2. Santa Claus. In Marvel Holiday Special Volume 1, released on November 19th, 1991, with a cover date of December 1991, in a little story called A Miracle a Few Blocks Down from 34th Street, 'twas the day before Christmas, and all through the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, Cerebro detected what it called the most powerful mutant ever registered, who had just miraculously appeared in New York's Rockefeller Center. The X-Men obviously went off to investigate, but this massively powerful mutant was also detected by a group of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, who also went to try and capture the mutant for their own evil purposes, resulting in a clash between the two factions. But this mutant just happened to be Santa Claus himself, who used his insane power to briefly transform the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants into toys. He teleported the X-Men away, erased everyone's memory, and then made it snow, giving New York the first white Christmas it's had in a hot minute. Number 1. Miss Marvel. What most people know about Kamala Khan is that she possesses a latent inhuman lineage, which was activated by the Terrigen bomb. Her exposure to the Terrigen mist turned Khan into a polymorph with the ability to stretch her body in almost any way, and for a while, it stayed that way. Now fast forward to 2023, and Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, number 26, with the return of the emissary seeking to sacrifice Mary Jane Watson. Miss Marvel protected MJ and fought off the villain, but while the other heroes involved were busy, Miss Marvel used her shapeshifting powers to impersonate Mary Jane and misdirect Emissary. However, he caught Kamala off guard by teleporting to flank her, and he took her life. Now Kamala revealed her identity to Spider-Man and passed away in his arms, but then, in the Krakoa Hellfire Gala from 2023, Kamala was surprisingly resurrected by the Five on Krakoa and was shocked when Charles Xavier, Emma Frost, and Cyclops revealed to her that she was also a mutant, making her an incredibly rare mutant-inhuman hybrid, and we still have no idea what her actual power is.
Number 10. Spider-Man. Yes, even Spider-Man was once almost classified as a mutant, if you can believe that. While people have speculated on this in the comics for years, it has been confirmed that Spider-Man is a mutate. But in the 90s animated series, even Spider-Man was convinced that when he needed help with his mutation, the X-Men were the team to turn to. He visited Professor X when he was worried about mutating further after having some trouble with his powers. Spider-Man was told by Dr. Kurt Connors that what he was mutating into was something that was probably not human. Peter hoped that Professor X would be able to cure him, but the professor revealed that his goal was not to cure mutants, but to help them embrace their mutant gifts and train them. In the end, this led to a team up with Beast and the X-Men in the animated story The Mutant Agenda, and we learned that Spider-Man was a different kind of mutant than those whom Professor X recruited to his school and X-Men team. Number 9. Quicksilver. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are twin siblings, and both have been team members of the Avengers. Both of them have also struggled to find an origin as characters that would stick with them. Before even becoming known in the comics for being Magneto's kids, there were actually a few other origins that were attached to these two mutants. One was more casual, where their parents were really anyone of note in the superhero community. Another suggested they might be the children of Miss America and Whizzer. However, Magneto being revealed as their dad finally seemed to be the one that stuck. Until, many years later, after it had been vehemently established as fact and built upon, it was revealed that even this was not true. Seriously, these two have had a really weird and complex and ever-changing family tree. Not only that, they weren't even mutants apparently. It turns out the High Evolutionary was the one responsible for making it appear as though they were mutants, disguising them as such after experimenting on them. This retcon would lead Quicksilver to having problems with his powers later on and cause him to turn to the Inhumans for help. So now he's more affiliated with that group than the mutants he was so long tied to and believed to be a member of. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to hear about some more folks that were almost mutants but not quite, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Scarlet Witch. When it comes to Wanda's origins as a character, it's been a roller coaster, much like her brother Quicksilver. But possibly even more so, because Wanda herself has also been through a lot as a character. She's been labeled a villain, a hero, a mutant, an avenger, a pretender. She's been a wife, she's had kids, she's had her kids removed from her because they didn't really exist. So many things. And all along the way, her origin has been retconned multiple times. One of the most prominent retcons, of course, was like Quicksilver, when it was revealed that after years of working by his side and also being claimed as Magneto's children, it was revealed that Scarlet Witch was not actually the daughter of Magneto. In fact, she wasn't even a mutant, which made everything that happened in House of M and its aftermath seem a lot worse in present light, hence how she was called a pretender for a while there. Number 7. Luna. Luna Maximoff is the daughter of Inhuman hero Crystal and Avenger Quicksilver. As a result, it was believed initially that Luna was a mutant and human hybrid, something I never really thought about existing until I wrote this list. This is mainly because Inhumans usually only mate and partner off with Inhumans to help keep their people, the Inhumans, alive, but also because they have trouble existing in certain atmospheres for long periods of time, which their bodies often find toxic, which is why they also typically keep to themselves in their floating city of Attilan. Because Quicksilver was Luna's dad, it was implied that she was part mutant, and because Crystal was her mom, it was implied that she was part Inhuman. But with the retcon of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, Luna's origin for her power set was also affected, because now they're not mutants, so then what does that mean for Luna? Leaving her now to be half Inhuman, half human instead, which I think is even weirder to me for some reason. Number 6. Phantom X. Phantom X is just really complicated when it comes to his backstory and his overall character, and well, just everything is confusing about Phantom X, to be honest. He has worked closely with mutants before and even been classified as one, although from what I can see that's really only ever happened once, and everything else is implied that he's more a mutate, not a mutant. However, he's also composed of 3 separate brains and kinda 3 separate entities, so it is possible that one of them is a mutant while the others aren't, making him a sometimes mutant and a sometimes mutate. Basically, Phantom X is a mutant, I think, but also every time I actually have to go back through his history and then like reflect on this whole question, I find more confusion than clarity. I get more confused every time I return to this. Phantom X, mutant or not, he's complicated. Number 5. Cloak. Cloak is Tyrone Johnson, often the partner of Dagger. The two teamed up and met when they were just teens. Tyrone at the time was quite poor and living on the streets, and Tandy, who would become Dagger, had basically just run away from home. Together they became a crime-fighting duo. Initially, they also appeared to get their powers from a shared mutant origin. However, over the years, this origin would become unstable, be called into question, and eventually retconned pretty much entirely. They went from being definitely mutants to characters with mutant-like abilities that were actually mutate-based and brought out from exposure to a drug. Number 4. Dagger. Dagger is the other half of the crime-fighting duo, Cloak and Dagger. Dagger was also once thought of to be a mutant and even found a home on the mutant island nation of Utopia back when that was a thing. From being a mutant to having latent mutant abilities, which were really mutate abilities awoken by exposure to a drug, both Cloak and Dagger were later declared by Norman Osborn to be straight up not mutants, but close enough when he offered them a place on his own X-Men team. It was then called into question whether or not they were mutants when they were tested for the mutant X gene, with the tests suggesting that they weren't mutants, but X-Men member Beast questioning if those tests were actually thorough enough to be considered conclusive. adopted. Now they are mainly considered mutates or altered humans, but really it's kinda still up for debate as to their true mutant or non-mutant origins. Number 3. Moira X. I mean, Moira really was a mutant, that was established. For a long time we believed that Moira was simply a human ally to mutants who stood by them because she believed in their cause. However, more recently in the comics at the beginning of the Dawn of X era of the X-Men books, it was revealed that Moira was in fact herself a mutant with a very specific and unique power set that also helped to make sense of, well, seemingly all the continuities we've seen balled into one throughout comic book history. When she dies, Moira is reborn into her life again. Each time she lives it creating a tangential reality or timeline. In other words, the reality of 616 is intrinsically tied to Moira's current incarnation and life. However, while this revelation was massive, she was then demutinified and allowed to leave Krakoa thereafter during a standoff between Mystique and Cypher. Mystique and Destiny were looking at getting revenge on Moira and intended to kill her, but not wanting to face a future where they were separated if they did so, Mystique was forced to let her go instead, after using a weapon of Forge's designed to turn Moira human. That way her death wouldn't have resulted in a possible end to the rest of the universe, getting rid of Moira's mutant genes and her power set. So Moira really was a mutant and simply is no longer one, but still I think we could call this a case of her being an almost mutant, as she was only a mutant for like a short while in the comics before being relegated back to the human category, at least for now. Number 2. Ultimate X-Men. Technically the whole team of X-Men once believed wrongfully that they were mutants, when in reality they kinda weren't. In the Ultimate universe, of course, not the main continuity. Here all mutants classified themselves as their own kind of superpowered beings, just like on our 616, often dividing and separating from humanity, considering themselves in a way different than your average human, even if they did possess superpowers, and often struggling with discrimination due to being classified a mutant. In the end, however, it was revealed that the mutants were actually a result of years of experimentation. Everything connected back to the super soldier serum, which became the explanation behind how mutants got their power spontaneously, and what mutants really were. The serum had been leaked into the water supply and began affecting people and their offspring. Hence, we got mutants. But not really. This revelation is what helps the X-Men to defeat Magneto, as his whole philosophy and his beliefs are shaken by this revelation, leaving him broken as a result and vulnerable to attack. Number 1. Falcon. That's right, Sam Wilson was for a short time believed to be a mutant, and also inspired this list for me. Sam Wilson is a good friend of Captain America's and also his crime-fighting ally and partner, who is also known for having a telepathic link with his Falcon, Redwing. It was because of this telepathic connection that for a time he thought he might actually be a mutant. He was also mistakenly identified as a mutant by a Sentinel who pursued him. Later on, this was debunked, with the Sentinel being believed to be malfunctioning, as Sentinels sometimes do, thereby wrongly classifying Falcon. Instead, Falcon's telepathic link with Redwing and his ability to telepathically communicate with birds was revealed to be all a part of one of Red Skull's bizarre plots. Falcon gained this ability all because Red Skull had apparently made it so using the Cosmic Cube. I gotta say, I think it would have just made more sense to just let Falcon be a mutant. But okay, Marvel.